Think for a second about the sheer logistics of trying to put a solid roof over the heads of tens of millions of people. I mean, it's a completely staggering challenge, right? But for a long time, that was just the daily reality of India's housing shortage. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the absolute largest infrastructure and social welfare initiatives ever attempted anywhere in the world. But to really grasp the government's solution, we first need to ground ourselves in the massive scale of the problem.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the housing crisis, then look at what is PMAY, check out progress by the numbers, explore PMAY 2.0 and beyond, and wrap up with the economic impact.
All right, part one, the housing crisis.
40 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. According to the 2011 socioeconomic and caste census data, a massive 40 million Indian households were either entirely homeless or living in incredibly congested, inadequate conditions without even the most basic facilities. And remember, we're not talking about 40 million individuals, we're talking about 40 million entire households. Demand for housing was just skyrocketing because of a booming population and rising incomes, but the supply of basic, affordable shelter, it was completely failing to keep up. Now, you might be wondering, why couldn't the free market just fix this on its own? Well, it's pretty simple. Between 2012 and 2019, average real housing prices were actually increasing faster than GDP per capita. Basically, the cost of buying a home was sprinting upward, while the average person's income was just jogging. This economic reality effectively priced the most vulnerable citizens totally out of the market for permanent shelter. A major intervention wasn't just a good idea, it was absolutely critical.
Which brings us to section 2. What exactly is PMAY?
So to tackle this mountain of a problem, the government launched the Housing for All initiative back in 2015. At its core, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, or PMAY for short, operates on this fundamental philosophy: housing is a basic human right. And the scheme actively supports this right through heavy financial subsidies. The whole goal is to help low and moderate income families construct or buy what's known as a Pakka home. That just means a permanent, durable structure made out of materials like concrete, bricks, and cement, instead of temporary, fragile materials.
But look, to manage a policy in a nation as vast and diverse as India, you absolutely cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach. To keep things running smoothly and untangle any bureaucratic overlap, PMAY is neatly divided into two distinct administrative arms. PMAY Urban launched first in June 2015, and that's handled by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Then you have PMAY Grameen, the rural component, which rolled out a year later in April 2016 and is managed completely separately by the Ministry of Rural Development. So who actually gets this help? The scheme is structured to provide the most direct assistance to the economically weaker sections, or EWS. These are households earning under 3 lakh rupees a year. But it doesn't stop there. Through its credit-linked subsidy scheme, it scales up. It supports low-income groups earning up to 6 lakh, all the way up to middle-income groups bringing in up to 18 lakh rupees annually. It's a really smart, tiered approach designed to hit multiple layers of this affordability crisis at the same time. And here is a brilliantly integrated detail. This isn't just a housing policy. It's being leveraged to drive deep societal change. The PMA scheme comes with a very specific, strict social equity mandate. Women must be listed as either the sole owner or the co-owner of the new house. No exceptions. It's a surprising but incredibly powerful feature that instantly turns a standard real estate program into this massive engine for female financial independence and empowerment. Now, how the money moves is also really interesting. While the urban scheme relies a lot on interest subsidies for home loans, the rural approach, PMAY Grameen, operates a bit differently. It relies on direct cash grants for construction. Beneficiaries get 1.20 lakh rupees in plain areas or 1.30 lakh in hilly and northeastern regions. These costs are shared 60-40 between the central and state governments. But crucially, this money doesn't bounce around local government offices. It's transferred straight into the beneficiary's Aadhaar-linked bank account. This direct transfer model is intentionally built to cut out the middlemen and ensure total transparency.
Let's move on to section 3, progress by the numbers. Because policies are really only as good as their on-the-ground results, right?
Originally, the big deadline for Housing for All was set for 2022, which was meant to coincide with the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. But, as you can imagine, when the sheer reality of building tens of millions of physical homes actually set in, timelines naturally had to shift. The core objectives were extended through early 2024, which basically paved the way for the massive Phase 2 extensions we'll be looking at in just a minute.
Impartially speaking, let's look at the data for the urban arm as of May 2026. Over 12.5 million, so 1.25 crore houses, were officially sanctioned. Out of those, over 9.8 million houses, or 98 lakh, have been successfully completed and delivered. That is a massive achievement for sure, though it does clearly highlight the natural gap you get between getting a project approved on paper and physically finishing construction in densely populated urban environments.
But the rural numbers, they operate on an entirely different scale. Against a target of over 4.14 crore rural homes, 39.1 million were sanctioned, and an astonishing 30.4 million have been completely finished as of May 2026. Over 3 crore homes. This unbelievable volume of rural construction was driven by over $45 billion in central funds transfers. I mean, it is fundamentally reshaping the physical architectural makeup of rural India.
Section 4, PMAY 2.0 and beyond. So, did the government just pack up when the initial deadlines hit? No, they effectively doubled down. PMAY 2.0 for urban areas launched in September 2024, setting a brand new target to build another 1 crore houses over the next 5 years. Meanwhile, a rural expansion announced in March 2025 aims to construct a staggering 2 crore additional rural houses by 2029. The mission didn't just end, it simply reloaded with massive new horizons.
Finally, Section 5, the economic impact.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that when we talk about PMA, we naturally just think about shelter. But at this scale, housing isn't just shelter, it is a high-octane economic engine. When you pour billions into cement, steel, and labor, you create an incredible economic multiplier effect. This scheme accidentally acts as one of the country's largest employment generators. Building these homes requires labor across 30 different occupational categories: plumbers, masons, carpenters, electricians, you name it. Just to put that into perspective, in 2020 alone, the urban arm of PMA generated employment for roughly 1.65 million people. Furthermore, a house is really just a concrete shell until you add utilities, right? Well, the government uses PMAY as the foundational step, and they brilliantly integrate it with other major schemes. Once the home is built, they add clean cooking fuel through the Ujjwala scheme. Then they route piped drinking water via the Jal Jeevan mission. And now, they're even connecting free solar electricity through the PM Surya Ghar initiative. They aren't just building walls, they're systematically transforming basic concrete structures into fully functioning, modernized, and sustainable households. Which brings us to our final thoughts. The sheer volume of data, the tens of millions of homes, and the billions of dollars all point us toward a singular, really vital question. When a government executes an infrastructure project of this immense magnitude, literally putting roofs over the heads of millions, driving industrial demand, and creating millions of jobs, does it merely solve a housing crisis? I'll leave you to think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.